Hey everybody, Josh here, media here, and in the latest piece of propaganda, the United States government is claiming that Iran has nukes and therefore they might have to use tactical nukes against them. Now, this is getting to the point where we're so beyond absurd, and many people might be saying, Josh, most of your videos lately, other than a couple health videos, have been on Iran. Well, it's because this is the introduction, the intro, the lead in to the Great Reset. This is something that we all have to be paying attention to because it comes together with the puzzle of everything else that is being manufactured right now. This is out of Zero Hedge. Alarming Fox report says tactical nukes not off the table for Trump's Iran response. As we see Trump basically making it abundantly clear that the final showdown with Iran is here. This is getting so insane. They're openly acknowledging at this point that the U.S. is using Israel as a proxy, which is kind of funny because Israel basically owns the U.S. So technically the U.S. is a proxy of Israel. But nonetheless, U.S. intel says Iran likely to pursue nukes if U.S. joins Israel's war. Trump worried about Libya scenario. Now, look, first of all, they've been saying for 30 years that Iran is about to have nukes. There's countless examples of Benjamin Netanyahu saying Iran is about to have nukes in the next month, in the next 2 months. This time they say 15 days, just like they say in the next 30 days there might be a cyber attack from Iran, which we did another video on. And of course, it's absurd. And by the way, who's the only country who has ever used nuclear weapons on civilian populations? The United States. That's right. Oh, and Israel has nukes that they made secretly. So again, what's the deal here? If you're worried about a country having nukes and potentially using them against you, maybe it's a good idea to not attack them. But of course, this is all part of the escalation into what they will call World War III. This is including, by the way, Putin, who is 100% on the same page, same with China, with Iran. Iran's top allies here. Pakistan is. United Arab Emirates says they want to help Iran now. This is turning into a full-fledged world war. And this is not, again, some accident. This has been in the playbook for a long time, the 7-country plan. As Trump says, Tulsi Gabbard and the intelligence community are wrong. And that when they say there's no evidence that Iran's building nukes, he says they're wrong. They're wrong. So again, we are shifting into the height of insanity right now, all by design. We're going to go into some of these stories and more today. You know, every day we do one of these stories and we have a million news stories to talk about because there's so much happening every day on this. So I want to keep you guys updated and where we're going with this and the overall solution. So stick around for that. Before we get into it, my friends, I urge you to check those links below and get prepared today. If you haven't yet, you are in a world of hurt. It's not about fear mongering. It's about giving people solutions. Heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you'll get 5% off as well as free shipping on these items. Again, stock up on this today. It's insane not to. We are heading into a ration-based system with digital IDs. This is how you make sure that you aren't dependent on them later, bowing to them. No matter how awake you are, it doesn't matter if you are dependent. Also, check out whambeef.com for 10 plus year shelf life, freeze dried steak, 12 servings per bag. There's also freeze dried chicken and ground beef as well. Use code WAMBEEF, WAMBEEF, all one word, and you will get 20% off on these orders. So go and check it out today. Guaranteed no mRNA meat, no lab grown meat, all American beef that's 100% natural. Check it out today, whambeef.com, code WAMBEEF. And make sure to go and subscribe to us and follow us on Rumble and BitChute, my friends. We need your help more than ever on there. Hit the like button, share it on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. Now let's get into this. We appreciate all your support. So Zero Hedge says, alarming Fox report says tactical nukes not off the table for Trump's Iran response. This is such an insane amount of escalation, but should not surprise anyone. It says, we described earlier that the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, has reportedly informed American officials that destroying Iran's heavily fortified Fordo nuclear facility might require the use of a nuclear weapon, based on The Guardian. Well, by the way, this is as Russia is building nuclear plants there as well. And the United States has just shifted into this AI deal where they are creating nuclear weapons utilizing AI. So we have walked right into Skynet here. And by the way, this is as they're feeding soldiers lobster and steak and sending huge amounts of military planes out. We are clearly looking at the beginning of something really big. And I have no doubt at this point that the United States will get involved in this war. But anyway, it says officials briefed on the limitations of the GBU 57, a 30,000-pound conventional bunker buster bomb, are worried that even if President Trump gives the order, it may not be powerful enough to reach and destroy the deeply buried site. Oh my goodness. The report described that conventional bombs might have to be used to soften the terrain, followed by the dropping of a tactical nuclear weapon from a B-2 stealth bomber. I mean, you're hearing me right, my friends. You're hearing. This is. I mean, how stupid can it get? We're talking about nuclear bombs to destroy nuclear facilities and cause a nuclear war. A lot of people don't believe the nuclear weapons exist. All I have to say is that if you can make it in a small scale, I don't see why they can't make it in a bigger scale. Whether there's more fear mongering about it than what they have is another thing. Nonetheless, this means full scale war, potentially with Russia and China as well, and Pakistan, the whole Arab League. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. The latest reporting has sought to clarify that President Trump is not considering the nuclear option, nor has it yet to be formally presented to him by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. From fresh anonymous White House statement, present contradictory information. So very quickly, here we are. There's prominent public discourse about the possibility or eventual necessity of a nuclear bomb, as the Quincy Institute's Eli Clifton observes, and I quote, "It's disturbing, but not surprising how the entire executive branch communications apparatus can be activated into total war hysteria mode seemingly overnight." And again, by the way, my friends, President Trump doesn't have any power himself. Why are we still looking at it like that? Whether he wants to or not is not the issue. There's an overall agenda that was written long ago. But anyway, it says Israel is urging the U.S. under Trump to target Fordo with whatever it takes, given its lacks the capability to carry out such a strike. But at least it's comforting that the tactical nuke is off the table for now. Or wait, none of the options are off the table, a fresh Fox report claims, citing a senior White House official. It says Heinrich on Iran. An article stated that Trump was not considering a tactical nuke, that it was not one of the options that was presented to him. I was just told by a top official here that none of that report is true, that none of the options are off the table. Right as you breathe a breath of fresh air and a little bit of relief off your shoulder, then they say something like this. All this is premised on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claim that Iran is in fact pursuing a nuclear weapon, just like he went to Congress in 2002 claiming there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. You know, I have a book behind me that is called Deadly Betrayal, somewhere over here. Deadly Betrayal by Dennis Fritz, which goes into how Netanyahu lobbied Congress on weapons of mass destruction, claiming that it was basically the end of the world if they don't go after Iraq. And then, of course, this causes mass migration, causes destabilization, causes 2 million people to die, mostly under the age of 18, by the way. And of course, then leads to Israel having more control over the region. So you have, once again, the move into the Greater Israel Project. So it's evil. And then, of course, terrorism going wild, Wahhabism going wild. And who's arming and funding those guys? Well, Israeli Mossad and CIA and MI6 and all these other groups. So, and not to mention Hamas being armed and funded by Israel as well. It says, dangerously, the White House seems to be siding with Israeli intelligence over the assessment of the U.S. intelligence community, as presented by DNI Tulsi Gabbard, who may have already been sidelined in White House Situation Room discussions. Oh, definitely, because she has already been told that she is wrong. Wrong, he says. Wrong. You know, as no different than the debates from days past. This is, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, I've never trusted her because she's a CFR member and is a hardcore leftist on most issues anyway. But nonetheless, she's been mostly consistent on war, but has fallen into kind of a state of silence recently over this Israeli conflict. And of course, I'm sure it's over opportunism or over blackmail. Remember, Israel employed Epstein through Mossad, according to almost all sources, including Epstein himself, which led to massive amounts of blackmail on U.S. politicians and powerful people. SHTF plan says, this is it. Trump makes it abundantly clear that the final showdown with Iran is here. He's essentially going full-fledged, saying he's shutting down anyone that goes against what he's saying. We now have complete and total control of the skies of Iran, or he's saying that you must evacuate Tehran now, a city of 10 million people. Unconditional surrender, he says. I mean, we are walking straight into it as Ted Cruz reveals U.S. is helping Israel carry out military strikes on Iran in his back and forth with Tucker Carlson, which was cringeworthy to say the least. And of course, he basically says, "Yeah, we're helping Iran." Oh well, the U.S. said that or the U.S. government said that there's no connection and that the U.S. isn't helping Israel. Well, they are. Okay, well then that goes against the previous claims. I mean, they're going back and forth on this. We all know that the U.S. at least is massively funding Israel and sending massive amounts of weapons. We know a bunch of Hellfire missiles were sent to Israel just days before the initial strikes on Iran, which were preemptive and are now causing the threat of mass casualties. Zero Hedge says U.S. intel: Iran likely to pursue nukes if U.S. joins Israel's war. Trump worried about Libya scenario. Okay, listen, when we are talking about the fact that, okay, they might use nukes, maybe attacking them isn't a good idea. And they say within the next 15 days or 2 weeks, they will have nukes. They've been saying that for decades and decades, whether it be a month, whether it be a few days. It's freaking absurd. And then, of course, the Libya scenario where the overthrowing of Gaddafi, we saw, he died, ha ha ha, cackles Hillary Clinton. We are seeing a scenario that's much more dangerous than that, because as much as Libya had some power and of course had a lot of power in the Arab League and of course their work with Egypt and Iran and all these other countries, and the murder of Gaddafi, that was all bad. And when I was living in Egypt a few years ago, I talked to a lot of Libyan refugees that were there. This is another level, though, because Iran is like best friends with Russia and China, which I'll get into in a moment. I mean, we are talking about something that would absolutely devastate the current world order that's already bad enough and based in militarism. And that militarism ends with a bang with the new system, the new world order, which will be based in technocracy, which will be complete compliance, total prison planet based on technological digital IDs, rations, social credit, all that kind of stuff under emergency orders, which they are already readying. So I think this is the reset, my friends. This is that shift. And this is what we've been talking about for decades now. I've been talking about this for 19 years now. I feel old, but I'm really not. It's just, I was a kid and I already knew about this. I was 12 years old. I already figured it out. I don't know what's taking so long for the mainstream alternative media, which are full of opportunist scum that'll bow to anyone that gives them money or power or popularity. Anyway, as we go bankrupt, by the way, check that link below for gogetfunding.com. By the way, just letting you guys know we need help. Zero Hedge says IAEA chief warns UN Security Council that strike on Iran's Bushehr plant would create nuclear disaster. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog IAEA, Rafael Mariano Grossi, has issued fresh remarks before the Security Council on Friday, warning that Israeli strikes on Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant is where the consequences of an attack could be most serious. The active and operating nuclear power plant currently hosts thousands of kilograms of nuclear material. He warns of the potential nuclear disaster, and I quote, "Countries of the region have reached out directly to me over the past few hours to express their concerns, and I want to make it absolutely and completely clear, in case of an attack on the Bushehr nuclear power plant, a direct hit would result in a very high release of radioactivity," Grossi tells the UN Security Council. Now, again, this is as Russia is building countless new nuclear plants in Iran. That's a direct threat to Russia. White House says Trump to decide on attacking Iran within next 2 weeks, but he also says, oh, we'll figure it out at the last second. And then when Tucker Carlson says it's a bad idea, he says, oh, kooky Tucker Carlson says that being Israel first is not America first. But I know what being America first is, because I make that decision on it. Anyone that wants to know what America first is, I decide that because I invented the term. No, you didn't. Reagan used it. Clinton used it. The narcissism here is so ridiculous. This isn't Trump derangement syndrome. I'm being realistic here. What we're seeing is unrivaled insanity as we see the USS Nimitz carrier strike group to arrive in the Middle East this weekend. The USS Nimitz is about to be decommissioned and retired like this next year. So if you want to look for a false flag opportunity, that would be it. And it's like the USS Liberty all over again. And remember, they get us into these wars by boats, the Lusitania in World War I, Pearl Harbor, World War II, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, Vietnam War. They tried with the Gulf of Oman incident a few years ago, which I remember interviewing Ron Paul about. All of these lead to the same scenario every fucking time. And we have the same thing with the USS Liberty, the attempt. And that was Israel striking the USS Liberty. We're not allowed to talk about that now because you're an anti-Semite if you say one single thing about something Israel's done in the past. Like, I don't know, employ Epstein to gather blackmail operation on people, or Netanyahu bragging about sending migrants to the West. I mean, tell me why we can criticize any religion in the world, but if you say one thing about Israel, which isn't even the religion, and it's actually a government, that is so off the table, and you should be canceled and your bank account shut down and everything across the board. I mean, why? If you want to know who rules you, I mean, seriously, and if you want to know why there's so much anti-Semitism now, maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Perhaps people being muzzled. People tend to not like being muzzled unless it's opportunistic for them, which unfortunately, through this PSYOP censorship system, they have started to make it that way. Like with what we saw in 2020 to 2022 and onward, if you didn't say anything about a certain thing, then you made a bunch of money and you got viewership if you were in media, et cetera, et cetera. And if you did the opposite, you lost all of it. It's similar now, and they are trying to silence anyone in alternative media that dares to talk about this kind of stuff. They're bringing in a huge censorship campaign because they want to make it seem opportunistic to the opportunists like Tim Pool and Luke Rudowski and people like that who have no consistency in the game, are fence sitters and basically do whatever they're told, as Tim Pool meets with Netanyahu in private. And, you know, Luke, 2020, must solve everything, he says. Fauci's just a nice old man. There's no evidence of a conspiracy. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that again. The point is, I'm a little bitter about it because we are just seeing so much, you know, of silence in alternative media, starting most of the most important things and not putting the puzzle pieces together and not seeing how this all leads to this technocratic world order. Russia and China are 100% in Iran's corner, and that has very serious implications, says endoftheamericandream.com. By the way, I've been saying this for a long time. Oh, well, Trump isn't going to go after Russia. He's going to stop World War III, they say. Yeah, well, presidents don't have power. They will get it one way or another, whether it be through NATO and Germany and France and the UK going after Russia, which they say they want to do throughout this summer. It's by July of 2025 in the leaked documents from Germany in January 2024, which I covered at the time. But then there's also a fact that China and Russia are Iran's top allies. And by the way, the whole idea of the whole BRICS unit of payment system, the new monetary, the new hegemony system, the shift into CBDCs, it's all in the East. They want to shift power from the West to the East so that they can collapse a power that was going to collapse anyway, because, you know, all fiat currencies eventually revert to zero and all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and shift into the new system while making it look like it was a naturally occurring thing. But it's not. It was created. China was propped up by the U.S. in the first place. With Trilateral Commission, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and the Rockefellers, as well as Kissinger, propping them up for monopoly purposes to save them from a starvation event in 1972. Trilateral Commission used them as a guinea pig state for technocracy. Now all those technocratic moves that were happening in China are going out across the board. And now they're testing things in Israel as well, giving aid to children in Palestine only through a facial recognition system, which they're going to do for the same thing for rations in the US and elsewhere in the future, under the guise of national security, of course. So this is enormously dangerous. And Putin says he's worried when asked if he is concerned the world is heading towards World War III. Kremlin comments on possible U.S. strike on Iran. Washington's military involvement would be the wrong move, says Dmitry Peskov. And of course, excuse me, Russia has, and Putin said today that he's always been in favor of Iran. He has always supported Iran. They're creeping up real fast on Russia, by the way, because Israel already took over Syria with their proxy Jolani al-Qaeda boss, and of course Iraq. They're doing what they're doing in Ukraine. It's all creeping up on them. The Cradle.co says Russia warns U.S. against assassinating Khamenei, calls regime change attempts unacceptable. Moscow rejects Israeli and U.S. calls for regime change, warning any strike on Iran's leader would destabilize West Asia and beyond. Yeah, and they would have to get involved. And by the way, Russia is one of the main countries developing a digital ID CBDC system right now. So it's not like one side is better, it's like good, and one side's bad. It's all bad, and it's all manipulated and manufactured. Excuse me. But nonetheless, they frame it so that there's one empire versus another, and that's how we see it. And obviously, Russia versus the United States is a very, very bad situation. Russia, China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Pakistan versus Israel, Britain, France, Germany, Ukraine, United States, and Canada. Pretty bad. That's where they're heading. Trump says DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and Intel community are wrong on Iran. Everyone's wrong except for him. Of course. Oh, and he was told, and he tells people he was sent by God to do this. I mean, whenever anyone brings that up, avoid, run away. Oh, but Iran tried to assassinate him, says Benjamin Netanyahu, even though there's no evidence of it. And of course, he would say that. And of course, that leads to Trump saying that he's left a letter behind. So if anything happens to him, Iran will be obliterated. Those are the exact words. Leaves it open for false flag. That's for sure. They're leaving every option open for false flag. And even if everyone's awake about it, what are they going to do about it? People don't do anything. Everyone's complacent. No, everyone sits on their hands. People don't even get storable foods. People are sitting right now in their home without storable foods. I mean, with nothing that will keep them after things go down, which they will. We're going into 2030. Oh, it's frustrating. Just the News says Iran resistance leader calls for regime change amid Israel-Iran conflict. They're doing another coup. They want to do another coup, just like they did in 1953, which destabilized Iran, which allowed them to basically take it over as a proxy because they were using gold for oil and all these different things that Iraq and Libya did as well, and Syria. And of course, a huge overtaking of the region, leading to the Ayatollah standing up and the Islamic Revolution, which caused Wahhabism in the region. And then suddenly all these Ayatollahs suddenly get weapons that are strangely American. I wonder how that happened. This is all manufactured. So Israel to run out of air defense missiles soon. Well, don't worry, because Trump just spent $1 trillion on his defense budget to annex Palestine and help Israel against Iran, the largest military spending budget in U.S. history. So obviously, it doesn't look like that's going to be a big issue for Israel. They just got a bunch of Hellfire missiles anyway. And, you know, here's something. Speaking of missiles, this is really frustrating. U.S. claims Iran using human shields to protect military bases. So, human shields. The U.S. is claiming this after years of using people as human shields. And regarding Israel, their so-called Iron Dome is within the city centers around residential buildings, which is why Iran has bombed areas with apartment buildings in Tel Aviv recently. Tel Aviv has, and we've seen the videos, missiles coming out of the ground, out of residential buildings, out of parking garages, out of places right near homes, which is supposed to be the missile defense system of the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is nothing more than using civilians as targets. And interestingly enough, it makes sense because Israel has no problem killing their own people. It's all about their overall goal. They've killed their own people many times. October 7th. But here we are. They are claiming that Iran is doing that. And I wouldn't even say that Iran isn't doing that, because I wouldn't doubt any government doing something like that. But they are literally doing that. And they always say that about everyone else. They said that about Palestine, even though Israel built the tunnels and literally armed and funded Hamas. But okay, whatever. By the way, Iran had just weeks before the preemptive strikes agreed to not have any development of nuclear weapons. And we're totally in on the agreement. Trump administration plans massive censorship surge targeting critics of Israel amid escalating Iran conflict. Well, we've seen on video people rounded up and sent out of the country, deported even on legal visas for criticizing Israel. Expansive social media bans. The Trump administration plans to silence dissent, especially criticism of Israel, by banning thousands of conservative accounts under national security pretext, with Senator Marco Rubio overseeing the effort. Marco Rubio was a guy who helped arm ISIL and ISIS back in 2011, 2012, alongside Obama, Lindsey Graham, and John McCain. It says wartime censorship tactics. These are the free speech people, by the way. It's absolutely disgusting and pathetic that almost no one in alternative media is talking about this. Wartime censorship tactics. The strategy resembles historical suppression of dissent during wars, with pre-compiled lists targeting platforms like Truth Social and X, enforced via the State Department to control narratives around Iran tensions. And of course, it's okay when they do it. It's okay when they do it. When they're woke and they say, oh, I'm offended by words and we can't question this one group. They're a minority that owns way too much of the powers of the world. But, it's just this idea of suppressing dissent. And of course, they are already doing this to a great degree. Pro-Israel influence. Critics allege Trump's policies are driven by Zionist donors, with Rubio advancing censorship to protect Israel, while Trump dismisses U.S. intelligence in favor of Netanyahu's claims, risking nuclear escalation. Excuse me. And again, by the way, this is where they come in with the AI. This is where the Palantir database on all Americans comes in. This is where the Iron Dome in the U.S. comes in, where we have a huge surveillance network utilizing Elon Musk's Starlink, which, by the way, after they sever the underwater cables in war, they will say, oh, the only choice you have is to use this. And then when you use that, you need to sign into it, and you need a KYC kind of situation, know your customer, which means full-on surveillance, just like we see with the Stable Act and Genius Act bringing in CBDCs in the United States. At the same time as digital ID and biometrics across the board, hello, my friends, this is not a false alarm. They are going for the throat. They'll find any way to do it. They're doing what the left does with the climate agenda and the COVID stuff, but from this agenda, from migration, which they are causing, mass migration. And then they say, oh, problem, reaction, solution, repeat, right? And then, of course, under wartime pretenses, exactly how you ended up with Keynesian economics and the Federal Reserve in the first place, and the IRS, and all these insane industries, CIA, etc. False flags and financial cover-up. Analysts warn the crackdown may justify war with Iran to distract from economic collapse, with potential false flag attacks used to rally support, mirroring post 9/11 tactics. Of course, decentralized resistance and eroding freedoms. Free speech advocates urge migration to censorship-resistant platforms like Brighteon.io, comparing the crackdown to Ukraine's martial law and predicting bans on dissent under wartime pretext. Yeah, I urge people to go and follow me on Getter at @WorldAltMedia. I am on Brighteon.io as well, somewhere around here. I can never find everything I'm on. I have way too many things. But yeah, I'm on there. And you could also, obviously, I really want people to be subscribing on BitChute and hitting the notification bell and stuff, because we need that backup on those alternative platforms. But yeah, this is the agenda. They are moving forward with it fast. VPN is a good idea too. And then this is happening as they bring in their pretext to have that full-on censorship. Former CIA hacker warns that the U.S. will likely face a massive cyber attack from Iran within the next 30 days. It's always some period of time. This 30 days is 15 days. I wrote, did Israel plant this story? Obvious false flag is obvious, over on X at @WorldAltMedia. I just posted this video, which you can find on Rumble and BitChute, called Absurd Iran Cyber Attack on U.S. So go and check it out. But nonetheless, this idea of tactical nukes blowing up these nuclear facilities. I mean, we're talking full-scale war. They're feeding the soldiers lobster and steak. They are getting people ready for something really big. Now, I don't want to be the fear monger here. I think there's a lot of solutions out there. And I could be wrong about all this, but I know where the end point is here. So I know this is a perfect path for them. They are salivating over this. They couldn't have dreamed of a better situation than this. This is exactly what they wanted, like they did with Iraq, which brought us into the Patriot Act. And now we have drafts under the National Defense Authorization Act. You have the National Defense Authorization Act's ability to warrantlessly arrest you and spy on you and all these things. And on top of that, you have the UN Pact for the Future, which 193 countries sign on to, which allows them to close your bank accounts if you go up against them, bring in social credit, food rations, etc. And of course, all of this happening by blackmail by Israel. which is another part of it. So again, another example, there's no actual government. It's all shadow governments controlling the population, controlling the narratives, keeping the psyops alive. And now we're marching into a war with Iran, which I'm not even saying I like the Iranian government. People think I must love the Ayatollahs because of this. It's absurd. It's so ridiculous. It's the fact that millions of people will die. They'll send your children off to war. They will shut you down for food. They will control you via rations and digital IDs and CBDCs and 15-minute cities. This is exactly the agenda they've been working towards as the banking system collapses and they control your money. I mean, and people are dependent on grocery stores. People are dependent on banks. You need to withdraw from the system, my friends. The solution isn't voting for someone else, because that is literally sitting on your hands. The solution is to withdraw from the system. So again, I always leave you guys with real world solutions. I've been promoting this kind of stuff long before I ever made a cent off it. I still make almost nothing. I made $56 this last month on it. It's not like I'm making a bunch of money off this. I could have all these affiliates that I could make a bunch of money on. I don't care. This is about real solutions. I'm offering things all the time. This is what I want you guys to go out and do. Go and check out heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, books on how to get started. Use code WAM, W-A-M, and you'll get 5% off as well as free shipping on your order in the United States. This is obviously a no-brainer. You've got to go do it. It helps save your life and your family's life. If you have a family member that's on the fence or thinks you're crazy, get one for them. They'll thank you later. You know, it's hard to convince everyone, right? Some people are just perpetually asleep, willfully ignorant. We need to do everything we can to save ourselves. And I want people like you fighting alongside me in the fight for a bright, beautiful new civilization in the aftermath of this insanity, because it will get worse before it gets better, but it will get better eventually. I also urge you to check out whambeef.com. That's WAMBEEF.com for 10 plus year shelf life freeze-dried steak, 12 servings per bag. There's also freeze-dried chicken and ground beef as well. Use code WAMBEEF, WAMBEEF, all one word, and you'll get 20% off on your order. So I highly recommend people get on this today before they can't even access the meat anymore. And if they do, it's mRNA. Guaranteed no mRNA meat, no lab-grown meat, all American beef, 100% natural. I highly recommend people do this. Whambeef.com, code WAMBEEF, WAMBEEF, all one word. And of course, withdrawing from the financial system, the CBDC system, very important. Protect your money today. Go to firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/ and buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium today. Hold it in your hands, put it in a vault, put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system, and work with Mark Gonzalez, our good friend that we do a lot of videos with. Schedule an appointment for a free consultation with Mark Gonzalez and a complimentary investors package. Just let him know in the comment section of the forum when you sign up that you found him at World Alternative Media, or WAM, W-A-M. This is a great way to solve the issues. We have all sorts of stuff regarding health that we need to promote to you guys, but we can't if we post any video on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, please go subscribe to Rumble and BitChute. Please get notifications on over there, because we get let on for a few minutes. We're going to be taking off again. Everyone's going to say once again, weirdly, oh, where have you gone? Even though I've said in every video that we're going to get taken down. Please go over to, it's one link over. It's not a big deal. YouTube is full of nonsense these days anyway and controls the narrative. We have so many things that we want to talk to you about, but you have to actually go to Rumble and BitChute to see them, because we have a lot of videos we're not able to post on YouTube. Nonetheless, you can find us, find ways to help support us by going to gogetfunding.com, Patreon, or Subscribestar. We really need it. We are bankrupt. We are in an emergency situation, as always, because we have lost 90% of our revenue since mainstream alternative media platforms started shadow banning us, shutting us down, and making it so we couldn't reach people. They've done more damage to us, honestly, than YouTube has. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I urge you to help support us if you can, because we depend on you guys. On Patreon or Subscribestar, if you pledge $4.99 a month or more, you'll get exclusive content. And by the way, that's also an exit at World Alt Media. If you subscribe there, we have a PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com. And we have, of course, a Bitcoin address that you can scan on the screen here or see in the description. You can donate through the text address in the description. We also have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including privacy coins. We truly appreciate any help we can get. We have a Teespring store with a bunch of merchandise. And as always, find us on multiple different platforms. Make sure to back up us, our reach to you in as many ways as possible. Telegram, Rockfin, Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. There's Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. There's the Bad Guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms except for Spotify, where we're banned for some reason. Compared to YouTube, it's weird. Anyway, hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And as always, my friends, live freely, live by example. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.